It is Wednesday, June 25th, 2025. It is 5:34 p.m. I'm going to be reading day 25 of Even If I Believed in God, How Could I Possibly Explain Myself? A chapter installment from 40 Days of Doubt, a devotion, a day-by-day book about skeptics and stuff like that. So, on the Christian faith. I'm going to reread my response from last year and get it done. It is very hot outside today, but I did decide to do this entire channel based in my car, so I'm going to start sweating. But let's talk about Noah and the ark. The story that's depicted on the cover of every children's Bible, with a cute little giraffe poking his head out the window like he's a dino from the Flintstones. My first question is, why is that story featured in a children's Bible? It's absolutely horrifying. When I read to my kids all about the death and devastation of a flood that covered the whole earth, there's always similar questions. Daddy, did all the other animals die? Yes, baby. Daddy, did all the other red pandas die? Yes, sweetie. Daddy, did all the other puppies drown too? At this point, I'm too sad to respond. Atheists and agnostics will often point to Noah's Ark as a prime example of why they could never believe in God, in the God of the Bible. They wonder how any educated person can believe in stories like the Noah's Ark. Every kind of animal together on one boat? Did those lions happen to be vegetarians? Where did Noah find two polar bears in tropical Mesopotamia? Explaining stories like Noah's Ark to my educated non-Christian friend presents a real problem. They expect me to say that I think it's fiction or just a myth, but I believe Noah's Ark is based on actual events. We know there really was a devastating regional flood around 5,600 BC. That's why every major civilization in Mesopotamia, had a flood story explaining the catastrophe from their perspective, and usually in theological terms. In other words, they explained why their gods punished humankind, with that awful flood of which their ancestors spoke. But I also believe Noah wasn't the first story written about that flood. The Sumerians, Assyrians, and Babylonians told stories in which their gods sent the flood after telling a guy to build a boat and save some animals. Those civilizations were hundreds of years older than the Hebrew culture that produced the story of Noah, and it seems likely that his story was an adaptation of those other flood narratives. If so, would it mean the Bible isn't true? No, it means something far more interesting. It means the ancient Hebrews who knew those other stories wanted to tell a different story for a reason. They wanted to tell the world how their God was different. In those older stories, the gods sent floods for the most arbitrary reasons. In one story, people are too loud and it gives the gods a headache. In other, the gods are just annoyed with people. In some flood stories, there's no reason given at all. It's just arbitrary death and destruction at the hands of impervious gods. As the people and animals drowned to death, those gods laughed. They kept their distance. Some even cowered in fear, afraid of the very storm they created. Enter Noah. In the Hebrew story, God sends the flood because his heart is broken by all the senseless, irredeemable violence that covers the earth. Wars, tribal conflicts, physical and sexual abuse of women and children. There was so much violence, with so many people living in fear, that God wanted to start over to give people another chance to love and know him. In the story, God speaks to Noah, the only righteous man on earth, and hatches a plan to save humanity. The rains fall, the waters rise, and then it's finished. Noah and his family find dry land and begin to start over. They are traumatized, but they are not alone. The one true God meets them there. He blesses them, commands them to repopulate the earth, and proposes to them, like a man in love proposes to his future bride. God says, I now established my covenant with you and your descendants. After you, with every living creature that was with you, never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God says, this is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, the covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and earth. Genesis 9:8-13. This is not a God who laughs or cowers or keeps his distance while people suffer. This is the one true God who comes and meets us on her turf to show us we're never alone. He proposes a covenant with us, which was something no ancient God has ever done before. The Hebrew people wrote about Noah to tell the world about an altogether different kind of God. There are brilliant intellectual Christians whom I respect and trust, and who believe Noah's Ark is a literal historical account. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying you don't have to agree with them in order to believe the Bible is true and to make Jesus the center of your life. And the lions weren't vegetarians. They ate unicorns. Oh, that's literally it. And the lions weren't vegetarians. They ate unicorns. Oh, that was like a joke and a punchline to something he said earlier. Okay, well, now I'm going to read my last year response. So you're saying Noah's story was the Hebrews' interpretation of a popular theological event based upon a real flood, but it ultimately doesn't matter whether it's literal or not. For someone who this whole time has been very all or nothing, or the Bible is either true or it's not, it's really unfortunate. I'm disappointed that you abandoned that mentality and didn't take a stance for such an asinine tale such as Noah's. And I sort of still agree with that statement. I guess two takeaways is, yeah, I mean, he even says at the very end, like, there's people who think Noah's Ark is a literal historical event, but you don't have to agree with them to believe in the same Bible truth as they do. But in previous installments, he has put quite plainly that there are, genres, that it's important to know which genre this is. But then he says it ultimately doesn't matter which genre Noah's Ark story is. It really seems like he doesn't want to take the stance and say, hey, guys, stop believing Noah's Ark is a literal tale. Yeah, I mean, just like anything in religion, it is a interpretation of something that probably happened, and an interpretation from a certain type of people to build the character of their God. That's all it is. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, always question why.